But again, it's just the vocal. Oh, there's a light. Again, to adjust. Can you see that, or was it better with the light off? It's kind of bright, isn't it? Yeah? Okay, I'll turn the light off. And let me know if you can't read it. I did send these to you late, you guys. Sorry about that. But I have to get little shots in my eyes every 4 or 5 weeks. And yesterday was one of them, and I just couldn't see by the end of the day after I taught. So, okay. We're doing chapter 3, and we're going to look at how investors make decisions in a pretty basic way to start, and then we can talk about how different assumptions come in. Later we're going to talk about all the problems we can have trying to make a rational decision. Okay, so we're looking at decision usefulness, approach to financial accounting. So why we care as accountants, besides as investors ourselves, is our accounting information gives our accounting field gives information that hopefully is useful to investors when they're making decisions. So we kind of want to see what information we give and is it useful. So, decision usefulness approach, assessed from the perspective of whether the information provided is useful to the readers. And you guys, it's getting more and more critical because more and more information is online. And if we're too slow to adapt, our profession can kind of dwindle away, per se. So that's one of the reasons Canada has introduced data analytics for you guys to, as the world's moving in terms of getting information. They've done, not studies, they actually did a project where they kind of compared planning sales or anticipating budgeting sales for certain months for Walmart based on previous accounting information, because as you know, ours is pretty historical. They did that versus looking at satellite views of parking lots in Walmart during certain months. And they were predict looking at the parking lot data to tell what the sales were going to be. So that was really interesting, a little scary for us as accountants, but it'll come. And one of the ways data analytics really helps us is our ability to communicate. Because people perceive the accounting field, not us of course, we know it's much more vibrant, right? As just us sitting there going, oh, no, you can't have that expense, right? Or yes, you can. Whereas really, that's bookkeeping. The accounting field is much more decision making. And anytime you can catch someone's attention with the decision making process, then you're better off. So you've done it all in presentations. You've done graphs, right, from Excel, things like that. All it does is take bigger pieces of data, some data sets that don't fit into Excel, and let you program or whatever you do, and or use Power BI to make much more illustrations, okay, or visualizations. So that's one of the pieces we're trying to do as a profession to try and get more, I guess, information relevant out to our users. So that's kind of what we're thinking out through. It breezes us through many different chapters. Okay, so when we're applying the approach, we have to know, and who are some of our users? sorry, this is not straight, is it? Who are some of our users? Okay, if it's no one, we're in trouble. One starts with an I. Investors, right? So investors, who else? I know, you guys have heard this in a lot of courses.
Shareholders, well, those are banks or lenders.
Definitely. Government, right? Those are all people who are interested. Are our customers ever interested in our stuff?
Sometimes on a social impact level.
Okay. So that raises another thing where we're looking at sustainability and how companies are conveying, because that's new and it's still in its infancy. You guys are the ones that are going to end up building the standards and so on that define how we can report on that in a concrete, meaningful, and consistent fashion. So customers looking at social issues and sustainability and ethics, right? Also, maybe they want to see if we'll... Okay, and so all kinds of decision problems, investors, will I get a dividend consistently? Will the price go up? Can I sell it in the future and make money? Creditors and lenders, can they pay me back? Government, did they report everything they were supposed to? And customers again, how can I measure them performing in these kinds of things? Does that make sense? Okay. Theory and capital market theories, and that's throughout, to determine what makes up useful information. Okay, so this is the third slide. So, for a risk-averse investor, there's a trade-off between risk and return. All of us, as investors, have different levels of risk, right? Let's say you had a choice between flipping a coin. Heads, you get $100. Tails, you get 0. Okay? How many of you would take that? Okay, most of us, right? So, now, what if it was 100, tails 0, or $50? How many of you guys would still take the coin toss? No one? How many of you would just take the $50? Yeah. Okay, and bearing in mind, you guys, you're students, you're not in your higher earning potential, right? So it could be different. In 5 years, you guys could all be going, I'll wager, right? Okay, so what if it was, I'll give you, you'll either get $10. How many of you would take the 10 or 0 coin toss? Okay, so more of you, right? Versus the 5. So, technically, the expected value of that 10 and 0, 50-50, right, is $5. 50 times 10, 50 times 0.5 times 10, 0.5 times 0 gives you 5. If you were totally risk neutral, those two things equal in your eyes. Okay? You wouldn't pick one or the other. You'd go, well, I can't pick. I don't know. Tell me. You pick for me. Right? Now, that nervousness, I guess you can think of it, of making a decision is the averseness, the risk averseness. And you noticed as the risk went down, you became less risk averse, right? Which makes sense. Okay? So, the risk averseness to a decision. Now, some of us are more risk averse than others. How many of you guys like to, or if you had the money, or we could have traveled in the last year and a half, gone to Vegas and gambled? Okay. So there's a few of us, right? Me too. Now, even if we all went, are we all going to spend the same money? No, some people are very full, set limits, only play within that, right? Others, it's kind of a... So what does Vegas do to encourage you?
Free drinks.
Free drinks. They come around and you go, ooh, a free drink, give them their little tip, and you're off.
More
What
drinks
does
if you've been
alcohol
spending
do?
more.
Sorry?
More drinks if you've been spending more.
Exactly. And what does alcohol do to us?
Lowers inhibitions.
Lowers inhibitions. So it stops your brain from making such rational decisions. Okay? So, the idea of risk averseness, how you can play around with it, and later on in the course we'll look at some different fallacies of we think we're making a very rational decision when we're actually not. Okay, so I'll just summarize it. So the nervousness is the averseness, if that's a word, let's just pretend it is. And risk aversion, that's what the word is, increases as stakes increase. So if you were out looking for your first job in an accounting firm or a private company, coming out from school where you might not have a job or you have a part-time job and something unrelated, you're a little less risk averse. You'll kind of take something, oh yeah, it's doing the job. Okay, yeah, maybe the pay isn't the greatest or whatever, I'll take it right now, depending on your situation, because we're all different. However, that next jump to another job becomes harder to do. You're comfortable in that one, I mean, unless it's awful, you guys. It becomes harder to do. Do I stay in a comfortable situation? I have X, things are okay, or do I make the jump to the unknown, right? And if you do, it becomes harder, right? Unless I read Reddit a lot, so I read the malicious compliance stuff and all the I hate my job stuff. Not because I hate my job, by the way, I do love my job. But, I know some job situations are so bad that you'll just go. But, so if you're looking at a higher job level, risk averseness can increase. Averseness. The utility, which we think of as the average or expected value, is not equal to dollars. So we can't measure utility and kind of what a choice is worth to us in dollars, right? Here, you can have a new job for, I don't know, how much do you want? Okay? What are the questions you'd ask yourself besides money? None? You just take the money, I don't care, I'll work 100-hour weeks. Right? You'd want to know hours, you'd want to know sick leave, know progression in the company, what kind of tasks, that it's not just money. And through your OB course, the way to motivate people, we all think it is, but ultimately it isn't. And again, it depends on your circumstance, right? I mean, any of us teaching in the business school pretty much took cuts. Mine was in half to teach. Why? Because I really enjoyed teaching. Not because I hated the other stuff or because they were going to fire me or anything. This is just, for me, more enjoyable. Okay. Okay, rational investor attempts to maximize his or her own utility, and we all have slightly different levels of that. Seek more information to increase the payoff. And so this is the critical part, because we all want to tie it back to us. Provide information about risk and return. Now, sometimes investors are risk neutral, like we saw. There were more of you that were more neutral at flipping a coin for $10 than for 100. Okay? But usually it's only for small payoffs. And you guys, stop me if you've got questions on the way. Does anyone need this still? You good? Okay, single person decision theory. So this is going to start, and remember, with accounting and finance, economics is the parent of both of these disciplines. Okay? So anything you learned in economics is very, very related. So this explains how individuals make rational decisions under uncertainty. From the last chapter, before the probabilities were objective, they're subjective. Okay? So not like chapter 2, where they were objective. So, individuals select from alternatives using quantitative techniques. And the question, how would you make an investment decision? And investment can include, investment in a car, investment in your job, investment. So, think of buying a car. How do you make that decision? Yeah.
How long it's going to last you and whether it's going to increase your employment potential.
Okay, how long it's going to last you, and sorry, I missed the last part.
And if it's going to increase your employment potential and ability to get around and
Okay. If it's going to increase your potential, like for your life, enhance it, get around, can you do this, can you take trips, stuff like that. Okay, anyone else have a different decision? Or they might look at that and add more or less, or what? Okay, well, I drive a Yaris. It's an old Yaris, and I love it because it's so cute. So we went around and looked at every single car of that size, because that's the kind I wanted, and the whole thing. And the first one we looked at was a Yaris. I thought, oh, it's so cute. Because to me, all cars are kind of made the same, got the same kind of fuel economy. Some last longer than others. What did I end up buying after a wasted day and a half? First one I saw, because it was cute. I like to look at it. Every time I look at it, I go, oh, that's so cute. Right? That's just me. Now, I ruled out other things, different car manufacturers, because they weren't as suitable. But the ones I looked at, that's what it came down to for me. How about jobs? What are you looking at for your jobs, you guys?
trying to do more going into forensic accounting.
Oh, okay, auditing and forensic accounting. Okay, so you're looking at different job tasks. Excellent. What else, you guys? Let's see what green glasses on. Nothing. Who wants to work for a public accounting firm? No one. Okay. Who already is working for a public accounting firm? Okay. Who wants to work as a controller eventually in a company? Who wants to give up on accounting after this degree? And not give up. I've had a lot of students, that have gone into law, or one went into a Master's of Education actually, because he wants to end up, he wants to end up doing data analytics. So, there's lots of different things you can do. You probably will change in your lifetime, right? Okay, but you're going to look for wages, all that stuff, right? Okay, so that's what we're kind of going to think. Now, without us knowing, and we all do this to a different degree, some people will make a spreadsheet and highlight the salaries, the benefits, blah, 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 what it's worth to them, look at that. Other people will just, in their head, make some kind of quantitative decision. You don't know we're doing it, our brains are doing it quickly, but we're prioritizing, okay, or what location it's in, right? There's some times where there's good jobs outside the city. Well, some people don't want to move outside the city, or across the country, or to the US or Europe or Asia or wherever, okay? But we're in our brains, we're weighting them. And we might not say, oh, it's 0.3 times that, 0.4 times that. I mean, even someone who does a spreadsheet probably isn't doing that. So they have studied how people make decisions over the years. And again, like I said, this was largely economics, but then it spread into accounting and finance. So we're going to look at an example 3.1. If you're looking in your text, it's page 75. And I just want to walk you through it. It's a simple example just to show you how you can think of the decision and what utility is. Just gonna grab that. He's back on. Okay. So ultimately, for those of you that don't have texts here, we are looking at Bill. And Bill has $10,000 to invest. His choices are government bonds, which will return 2.25% or 2.25%, or invest in stocks of X Limited. Now, bonds are pretty certain, okay? The stocks, however, aren't. They can either have high performance, like stocks can, or low performance. If it's high, he's going to end up with 1,600. And if it's low, they're not going to get anything. Sorry, that should be high performance, low performance. And with the government bonds, 2.25 times 10,000, he's going to get 225. So a lot of times with decisions, they make a payoff table. So we've got a state, it's going to, or low. And we're going to do buy shares first. Which we're going to call decision A1. And the high is going to be 1,600, the low is going to be 0. Or we're going to buy the bonds. A2, regardless, theirs is just 225 for both. There is no high or low, just one. Now, the probabilities they've assigned, or Bill has assigned, to the stock performing high is 0.3, and obviously 0.7, because probabilities all have to add to 1. So these are subjective probabilities. Okay? And a objective probability is like a flip of a coin. What's the chance you'll get heads? 0.5. Even if you flipped it 6,000 times and got heads, what's the chance to get a tail? 0.5. Assuming the coin is good. Okay? Subjective, on the other hand, because Bill's putting everything he knows about the company X Limited into those probabilities. So he read the previous financial statements, he's read the MD&A, anything that, any press releases the company's put out, that kind of stuff. That's subjective. If we all looked at X Limited information, would we all have the same probabilities as Bill? No, not a chance, because we've got our built-in biases, our built-in way of looking at things, okay? And in fact, compared to the rest of the investment people in Canada, you guys have much more knowledge, right, of what financial statements mean. I would guess yours would be closer to objective because of your base of knowledge. Okay, so subjective probabilities include all the information Bill has about the company. Okay, and the prior probabilities. Like just up to his decision. Okay, so Bill knows these numbers. They depend on what's happened before. He's used our accounting information and so on. So, of this, the expected utility, and you can kind of think of utility as happiness, okay? It's not just dollars, because our emotions like nervousness and risk averseness, but the expected utility is the amount of good or happiness or value that is expected from a decision. And remember, it's not just financial. Because we're humans. So I like to think of utility as units of little happiness. That is a smiley face. You can't tell because I can't draw. Not even that. Okay, now, because we can't have utility in dollars, why can't we have utility in dollars? Wouldn't that make it easier? Well, does utility just encompass the actual dollars? Like a job, you get paid X dollars, that's how happy you are? No, it's other factors again. We're human, lots of other factors like emotions. So, for utility, we need some kind of function to translate it from dollars. Oh, sorry guys. So what we're going to do is we're going to say the equals the square root of the payoff. Now, you guys, in questions, it'll always tell you that. You don't have to figure out that function. That's way beyond what we need at this level. Okay. So I'm going to do our little decision chart again, except build in the payoff. So we've got A1 stocks, and we're either going to have a high payoff at 0.3 or low payoff at 0.7. So, sorry, I should have put a little titles here. So, the payoff on the stocks we said were 1,600 if it was high, and this is all in the question. And if it's low, it was 0. So the utility, the square root of 100 is 40, and this is 0. Now for A2, the bonds, they're easy because there is only one choice. The payoff is 225, so the utility is the square root of that, which is 15. So, just to recap, Bill's decided stocks or bonds. Those are his two choices for his 10,000. Going to pay out no matter what. They're certain. Remember, bonds aren't always like that, just so you know, right? If a company's going down, there could be risks that you're not going to get paid. But generally, we assume bonds are the safest ones. Stocks, on the other hand, definitely can go up or down. He's decided 0.3 chance, 0.3, 30% chance, oh my God, 30% chance is going to be a high state, 70 that it's low. Here's the payoffs if it's high, low, and the bonds are the same. So what we want to do is calculate happiness from each of the decisions that he's put into the probabilities. We can't use dollars because emotions are involved and averseness is involved, and those can't be measured in dollars, so we pick some kind of mathematical function. Okay? It could be the log of it, it could be cubed, then a square root, anything. Okay? The questions will tell you. This is more just a basic understanding of how we make decisions, even though we don't realize we're doing it. Okay? So what we're going to do is calculate the utility for A1, calculate the utility for A2, and which one's you going to pick?